Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the cruiser SS Horizon, his eyes fixed on the main screen. The ship was part of a small fleet patrolling the edge of human-controlled space. It was a quiet mission, or at least it had been until now. A faint signal had appeared on their sensors, a rhythmic pulse that repeated every few seconds. It came from somewhere deep within a nearby nebula, a swirling cloud of gas and dust that shimmered like a cosmic painting. Lieutenant Laura Bennett, seated at the communications station, frowned as she adjusted her headset. Her fingers danced over the controls, trying to isolate the source of the signal. "Sir, this isn't like anything we've seen before," she said, glancing up at Carter. "It's not random noise. There's a pattern, but I can't make sense of it." Carter crossed his arms, his expression thoughtful. "Could it be a distress call?" he asked. "I don't think so," Laura replied. "If it is, it's not using any known language or coding system. And there's something else." She hesitated for a moment. "The signal seems to be coming from inside the nebula." Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle leaned forward from his seat near the back of the bridge. His face was lined with worry. "That nebula is unstable, sir. If we go in, we risk damaging the ship. Plus, visibility will be next to nothing. We could end up flying blind." Carter nodded slowly. He understood the risks, but something about the signal intrigued him. It wasn't just its strangeness. It was the way it seemed to pull at him, almost like a voice whispering in the back of his mind. "We didn't come all this way to turn back, because things got tricky," he said firmly. "Prepare the ship. We're going in." The crew exchanged uneasy glances but followed orders. Within minutes, the SS Horizon entered the nebula. The view outside the windows shifted from the vast emptiness of space to a swirling kaleidoscope of colors. Clouds of glowing gas surrounded the ship, making navigation difficult. The hum of the engines grew louder as the crew worked to maintain control. Then, without warning, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared across the bridge, and lights flickered overhead. "What was that?" Carter demanded, gripping the railing. Doyle checked his console. "I don't know, sir. It's like something scanned us. Our systems are fine, but I've never felt anything like it." Before anyone could respond, another tremor rocked the ship. This time, the screens displayed strange readings, energy signatures unlike anything they'd encountered before. They were close, very close. Laura turned to Carter, her voice tense. "Sir, whatever that signal is, it's here, and it knows we're here too." Carter straightened, his jaw tightening. "Stay sharp, everyone. We're not leaving until we figure out what's going on." But even as he spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer alone. Somewhere out there, hidden in the swirling chaos of the nebula, something, or someone, was watching them. The crew worked quickly, scanning the area for any sign of movement. Then, through the haze, a shape emerged. At first it was just a shadow, indistinct and blurry. But as it drew closer, the details became clearer. It was a ship, larger than anything they'd ever seen. Its surface was smooth and dark, reflecting no light. There were no visible engines or weapons, yet it moved with unnatural grace, gliding through the nebula like a ghost. Doyle broke the silence. "That's no ship we know. Look at the way it's moving. It's like a phantom." Carter stared at the screen, his heart pounding. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't human, and it was heading straight for them. The crew of the SS Horizon stared at the massive, shadowy ship as it drifted closer. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its surface shimmered faintly, almost blending into the swirling colors of the nebula around it. There were no visible windows, no markings, and no signs of life. Yet it moved with a strange, deliberate precision, as if it were alive. Captain Daniel Carter stood frozen for a moment, his mind racing. "Lieutenant Bennett," he said finally, breaking the silence, "try to establish communication. Use every frequency we have." Laura nodded and turned back to her console. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, sending out signals in multiple languages and formats. but there was no response. The phantom ship continued its slow approach, ignoring their attempts to make contact. Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Sir, I don't like this. That thing is too close. We should pull back while we still can." Carter hesitated. He knew Doyle was right. Staying here was dangerous. But something about the ship held his attention. It wasn't just curiosity. It felt like the ship was testing them, waiting to see what they would do next. "Not yet," he said firmly. "We came here to investigate, and that's what we're going to do." As the minutes passed, the tension on the bridge grew thicker. The crew exchanged nervous glances, and some muttered quietly among themselves. Then, without warning, the phantom ship accelerated. In an instant, it closed the distance between them, stopping mere meters away from the SS horizon. The sheer size of it dwarfed Pazé staggering, looming over their smaller vessel like a predator sizing up its prey. Doyle let out a low whistle. "That's impossible. Nothing that big should be able to move like that." Before anyone could respond, a beam of light shot out from the phantom ship, piercing the hull of the SS horizon. Alarms blared again, and the lights flickered wildly. For a brief moment, panic erupted on the bridge as everyone scrambled to assess the damage. "Report," Carter barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. Doyle checked his console. "It's not causing structural damage, sir. Whatever this is, it's scanning us." As if to confirm his words, the ship's systems began acting strangely. Screens displayed garbled data, and random images flashed across the monitors. Some crew members clutched their heads, wincing as if in pain. Ensign Rachel Meyer, seated near Laura, gasped and slumped forward, her eyes wide open but unseeing. "Rachel," Laura shouted, rushing to her side. She shook the young woman gently, but Rachel didn't respond. Instead, her body stiffened, and her breathing became shallow. Carter stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "What's happening to her?" "I don't know," Laura admitted, her voice trembling. "But it's not just her. Look at the others." She gestured to the rest of the crew. Several people were staring blankly into space, their faces pale and expressionless. Then, as suddenly as it had started, the beam disappeared. The ship's systems stabilized, and the strange images faded from the screens. The crew blinked, shaking off the disorienting effects of whatever had just happened. Rachel groaned softly, coming back to consciousness. Carter knelt beside her. "Are you all right?" She nodded weakly but didn't speak. Her eyes darted around the room, filled with confusion and fear. "What did you see?" Carter asked gently. Rachel swallowed hard. I'm not sure. Images, flashes, a planet burning. Towers taller than mountains, beings made of light." Her voice trailed off, and she shuddered. The bridge fell silent as her words sank in. Whatever the phantom ship had shown them, it wasn't meant to comfort. It felt like a warning, or a threat. Doyle cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to get out of here. Now." Carter stood, his jaw tightening. He glanced at the main screen, where the phantom ship still hovered silently. It hadn't moved since the beam retracted, but its presence loomed large, oppressive. "Prepare the engines," he ordered. "We're leaving." The crew sprang into action, eager to comply. But as the SS Horizon turned to retreat, the phantom ship began moving again. It didn't fire weapons or attack. It simply followed, matching their speed effortlessly. Carter clenched his fists, watching the screen. They weren't safe yet. Not by a long shot. The SS Horizon raced through the nebula, its engines roaring at full power. Captain Daniel Carter gripped the railing on the bridge, his eyes locked on the main screen. Behind them, the phantom ship followed silently, its dark form cutting through the swirling clouds of gas like a shadow come to life. It didn't attack or fire weapons. It didn't need to. Its mere presence was enough to fill the crew with dread. "Lieutenant Bennett," Carter said sharply, "status report." Laura glanced up from her console, her face pale but determined. "We're pushing the engines as hard as they can go, sir." but it's still behind us. No matter how fast we move, it matches our speed without effort. Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle leaned over his station, shaking his head. That thing doesn't follow the rules of physics. I've never seen anything like it. If we don't find a way to lose it, we're done for. Carter frowned, his mind racing. They couldn't outrun it, and they had already tried to communicate. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't interested in negotiation. He turned to Ensign Rachel Meyer, who sat quietly in her seat, still shaken from the earlier encounter. Rachel, you saw something when that beam hit us. Can you remember anything else? She hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. It's blurry, like fragments of a dream. There were beings, powerful ones. They weren't human. And they built that ship. It wasn't just a weapon. It was part of them, like an extension of their will. Doyle raised an eyebrow. So we're dealing with aliens? Great, just what we needed. Not just aliens, Rachel corrected softly. Something older. Something ancient. They ruled the galaxy once, but something destroyed them. The planet I saw, it burned because of their own hubris. The room fell silent as her words sank in. Carter rubbed his temples, trying to process the implications. If Rachel was right, then the Phantom ship wasn't just some random threat. It was a remnant of a civilization far beyond humanity's understanding. And now it had chosen them for reasons unknown. Sir, Laura interrupted, breaking the tension. Command is hailing us. Admiral Graves wants an update. Carter nodded. Patch him through. A moment later, the stern face of Admiral Henry Graves appeared on the screen. Captain Carter, report. What's going on out there? Carter took a deep breath. Admiral, we've encountered an unidentified vessel of unknown origin. It's unlike anything in our database. We attempted communication, but it responded by scanning us with some kind of energy beam. Several crew members experienced visions. We believe it may be linked to an ancient alien civilization. Graves scowled. And you're telling me this thing is chasing you? Yes, sir, Carter replied. It's faster and more advanced than anything we've got. We need reinforcements. Graves sighed heavily. I'll send Commander Dawson and her battlecruiser, the SS Vanguard, to assist. But until then, you hold your position and keep me updated. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge eerily quiet. Carter turned back to his crew. You heard the man. We hold steady until help arrives. But holding steady proved easier said than done. Minutes later, the Phantom ship suddenly accelerated, closing the gap between them in seconds. This time, it didn't stop. Instead, it began circling the SS horizon, moving so quickly that it blurred into a ring of darkness around them. What's it doing? Doyle muttered, frantically checking his instruments. It's messing with our systems again. Shields are destabilizing. Carter clenched his fists. Everyone, brace yourselves. As if on cue, the ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered, and alarms blared once more. On the main screen, the Phantom ship came to a halt directly in front of them. Then, without warning, another beam shot out, connecting the two vessels. This time, however, it wasn't invasive. It felt more like a link, a bridge between the two ships. Rachel gasped, clutching her head. Her eyes widened as new images flooded her mind. She saw towering structures collapsing under waves of fire, heard voices speaking in languages she couldn't understand. Among the chaos, one message stood out. You are young. Learn. The beam vanished as abruptly as it had appeared. The Phantom ship pulled back, hovering silently once more. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Rachel whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It's testing us." Carter looked at her, his expression grim. Whatever this thing wanted, humanity's fate might depend on passing its test. The Phantom ship hung motionless in the void, its dark form casting an eerie shadow over the SS horizon. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. Rachel Meyer's words echoed in his thoughts. It's testing us. But what did that mean? And how could they possibly pass? Lieutenant Bennett, Carter said, breaking the tense silence. Did we get anything new from that last connection? Laura shook her head, frustration evident on her face. No, sir. Whatever it sent wasn't meant for our systems. It bypassed everything and went straight into Rachel. Carter glanced at Rachel, who sat slumped in her seat, her face pale but resolute. She looked up and met his gaze. I don't think it was trying to hurt us this time, she said quietly. It was showing me things, like it wanted me to understand. Understand what? Doyle asked sharply, his voice tinged with skepticism. That thing out there is dangerous. It doesn't care about understanding. It's messing with us. Rachel hesitated before answering. Maybe it does care. The beings who made it, they weren't cruel. They were proud, too proud. Their downfall came because they didn't listen to warnings. This ship might be here to stop others from making the same mistakes. Carter frowned. If Rachel was right, then humanity might have stumbled into something far bigger than anyone realized. But whether the Phantom ship viewed them as a threat or simply as children in need of guidance remained unclear. Before Carter could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Laura turned back to her console, her fingers flying over the controls. Sir, more ships are approaching. It's Commander Dawson and the SS Vanguard. And they're not alone. There's a whole fleet behind them. Relief washed over some of the crew, but Carter felt no comfort. Reinforcements were good, but facing an enemy like this one wasn't about numbers. Still, it gave them options. Lieutenant, send a message to Commander Dawson. Tell her to hold position outside the nebula until we assess the situation. Moments later, the transmission came through. Commander Emily Dawson's stern face appeared on the screen. Captain Carter, report. What's going on out there? Carter quickly explained the situation, emphasizing the Phantom ship's advanced capabilities and unpredictable behavior. Commander, I suggest you keep your distance. That thing moves faster than anything we've seen. If it decides to attack, we'll need every advantage we can get. Dawson nodded grimly. Understood. We'll stay ready. Just give the word, and we'll move in. As the transmission ended, the Phantom ship began moving again. This time, it didn't approach the SS horizon. Instead, it turned toward the incoming fleet, accelerating with terrifying speed. Within seconds, it reached the edge of the nebula, where the Vanguard and its escorts waited. Doyle cursed under his breath. They're going after them. On the main screen, chaos erupted. The Phantom ship darted between the fleet's vessels, its movements erratic yet precise. Energy beams lashed out, disabling engines and weapons without causing catastrophic damage. Ships tried to fire back, but their shots passed harmlessly through empty space. The Phantom ship was always one step ahead. Carter clenched his fists, watching helplessly as the fleet scrambled to regroup. We have to do something, he muttered. If it keeps this up, it'll tear them apart. Rachel spoke up, her voice steady despite the tension. Maybe we can distract it, draw it away from them. Carter turned to her, his brow furrowed. How? Use me, she said firmly. Whatever it showed me earlier, it connected with me. Maybe it sees me as important, or at least worth paying attention to. If I go out there, maybe it will follow. Doyle shook his head vehemently. That's insane. You'd be putting yourself in direct danger. I'm already in danger, Rachel shot back. So are all of us. If this works, it could save everyone. Carter hesitated, torn between caution and desperation. Finally, he nodded. All right. Prepare a shuttle. Lieutenant Bennett, you're with me. We're taking Rachel out there. The crew sprang into action, readying a small transport craft. As they prepared to leave, Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the unknown. But if Rachel was right, if the Phantom ship truly saw them as part of some cosmic test, then this might be their only chance to prove themselves worthy. The shuttle detached from the SS Horizon and drifted into the nebula, its small form dwarfed by the chaos around it. Captain Daniel Carter sat in the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls tightly. Behind him, Lieutenant Laura Bennett monitored the sensors while Ensign Rachel Meyer stared out the window, her face pale but determined. "Do you really think this will work?" Laura asked, breaking the tense silence. Carter didn't answer immediately. He wasn't sure himself. All they had was Rachel's theory, that the Phantom ship had connected with her during their earlier encounter and might respond to her presence again. It was a gamble, but one they had to take. The fleet outside the nebula was already struggling to hold its ground against the mysterious vessel. If they could draw it away, even for a moment, it might give the others a chance to regroup. "We'll find out soon enough," Carter said finally, his voice steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. As they approached the edge of the nebula, the Phantom ship came into view. It hovered near the Vanguard and its escorts, darting between them with unnatural speed. Energy beams lashed out, disabling weapon systems and engines without causing catastrophic damage. The human ships fired back, but their shots passed through empty space as if the Phantom ship weren't there at all. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. "It's playing with them," she whispered, "like it's testing their limits." "Then let's hope it's interested in us instead," Carter muttered. He adjusted the shuttle's course, steering it directly toward the Phantom ship. As they drew closer, the massive vessel turned, its dark surface shimmering faintly in the dim light of the nebula. "It sees us," Laura said, her voice tense. "It's moving." The Phantom ship accelerated, closing the distance between them in seconds. For a moment, it seemed like it would collide with the shuttle, but then it stopped abruptly, hovering just meters away. Its presence was overwhelming, almost suffocating. Rachel took a deep breath and stood up. "I'm going out there." "What?" Carter snapped, turning to face her. "Are you crazy? You can't just walk out into open space." "I have to," Rachel replied firmly. "If I stay inside the shuttle, it won't know I'm here. But if I go out—" "No," Carter interrupted sharply. "This is too dangerous. We don't even know what that thing will do." Rachel met his gaze, her expression unwavering. "We're out of options, sir. If we don't try this, the fleet is done for. Trust me." Carter hesitated, torn between his duty to protect his crew and the desperate need to stop the Phantom ship. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. "All right, but we're coming with you." He activated the shuttle's external speakers, broadcasting a message in every frequency they had. "This is Captain Daniel Carter of the SS Horizon. We mean no harm. We've come to communicate." For a long moment, there was no response. Then the Phantom ship extended a beam of light, connecting with the shuttle. The energy enveloped Rachel as she stepped into the airlock and opened the outer hatch. The moment she emerged, the beam intensified, pulling her gently toward the Phantom ship. Rachel floated weightlessly, her body bathed in soft, pulsating light. Images flooded her mind again. Towering structures collapsing under waves of fire, beings made of pure energy fading into nothingness. And then, a clear message: "You are young. Learn." Back on the shuttle, Carter and Laura watched anxiously as Rachel drifted closer to the Phantom ship. Suddenly, the beam retracted, and the vessel began moving away, leaving the shuttle behind. It worked, Laura breathed, relief washing over her face. But Carter wasn't so sure. He turned to Rachel as she re-entered the shuttle, her face pale but resolute. "What did it show you?" Rachel looked at him, her eyes filled with both fear and determination. "It's not done with us yet." The shuttle drifted silently back toward the SS Horizon, its crew shaken but alive. Captain Daniel Carter sat in the pilot's seat, his mind replaying everything Rachel had said. The Phantom ship wasn't done with them. It was clear now that it viewed humanity as part of some larger test. But what would come next, and how could they possibly prepare for it? As they docked with the cruiser, The bridge crew greeted them with a mix of relief and unease. Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle stepped forward, his face lined with worry. "Sir, the fleet outside is falling apart. The Vanguard's shields are down, and 2 escort ships have been disabled. If that thing comes back—" "It won't," Rachel interrupted, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. "Not yet. It's waiting to see what we do next." Carter turned to her, his brow furrowed. "What makes you so sure?" Rachel hesitated before answering. "When I was out there, it showed me more. Not just images this time. Feelings. It's not here to destroy us. It's here to decide whether we're worth saving." Doyle shook his head, frustration evident in his tone. "That's great, but how do we prove we're worth saving? We can't just sit here and hope it likes us." Carter nodded slowly. He knew Doyle was right. They needed a plan, something bold enough to show the Phantom ship that humanity wasn't reckless or dangerous. But what? "Lieutenant Bennett," Carter said, turning to Laura, "pull up everything we've recorded about that ship. Every scan, every signal, every interaction. There has to be a pattern we're missing." Laura nodded and quickly got to work. Minutes later, she looked up from her console, her eyes wide. "Sir, there's something strange about the signal it sent earlier, the one that scanned us. It matches a harmonic frequency, almost like music." "Music?" Carter repeated, confused. "Not exactly," Laura explained, "but it's rhythmic, like a pulse. If we can replicate it, maybe we can communicate on its terms." Rachel's eyes lit up. "That's it. When it connected with me, I felt it too. A rhythm. Like a heartbeat. Maybe that's how it understands the universe." Carter straightened, a spark of hope igniting within him. "Doyle, can we modify the reactor core to emit a similar frequency?" Doyle frowned, running a hand through his hair. "It's risky, sir. If we mess this up, we could overload the entire system. But if it works, then we might have a chance." Carter finished. "Do it." The engineer nodded and set to work, barking orders to his team. Meanwhile, Carter turned to Rachel. "You'll need to guide us. Whatever you felt out there, whatever rhythm you heard, we'll use it." Rachel nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. She closed her eyes, focusing on the memory of the Phantom ship's pulse. Slowly, she began tapping out a beat on the console, mimicking the pattern she had experienced. Laura adjusted the controls accordingly, sensing the ship's systems to match the rhythm. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as the crew worked. Outside, the nebula swirled around them, its colors shifting eerily. Finally, Doyle stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're ready, sir. One broadcast, coming up." Carter took a deep breath. "Send it." The SS Horizon hummed softly as the modified signal pulsed outward, filling the void with a low rhythmic vibration. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Phantom ship reappeared, emerging from the depths of the nebula. It moved closer, its dark form shimmering faintly in the dim light. On the main screen, the crew watched as the ship paused, hovering silently near the horizon. A beam of light shot out, connecting the two vessels once more. This time, however, it wasn't invasive. It felt almost like an acknowledgement. Rachel exhaled sharply, her shoulders relaxing. "It understands," she whispered. "We've shown it we're trying to listen." Carter clenched his fists, his heart pounding. Whether this meant they were safe, or simply being given another chance, remained unclear. But one thing was certain. Humanity had taken its first step toward proving it deserved a place among the stars. The beam of light between the SS Horizon and the Phantom ship faded, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Captain Daniel Carter stared at the main screen, his eyes locked on the massive vessel hovering silently before them. It hadn't attacked or retreated. It simply stayed there, as if waiting for something more. "Lieutenant Bennett," Carter said quietly, breaking the stillness. "What's it doing now?" Laura checked her console, her brow furrowed. "Nothing, sir. It's not moving, not scanning us. It's just there." Rachel Myers stood nearby, her face pale but resolute. She had been quiet since the signal exchange, but now she spoke up. "It's thinking," she said softly, "or deciding. Whatever we did, it's considering it." Carter turned to her, his expression tense. "And if it doesn't like what it decides?" Rachel didn't answer immediately. Finally, she shook her head. "I don't know. But I think we've bought ourselves some time. Time they desperately needed." Outside the nebula, the remnants of the fleet were regrouping under Commander Emily Dawson's leadership. The Vanguard and its escorts had taken heavy damage, but they were still functional. Carter knew they couldn't rely on the fleet alone. If the Phantom ship decided to attack again, humanity would be outmatched. "Sir," Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle interrupted, his voice low, "we can't keep this up forever. The reactor modifications are unstable. If we try another broadcast, we risk blowing ourselves apart." Carter nodded grimly. He understood the risks, but they had no choice. They had to show the Phantom ship that humanity wasn't reckless, that they were capable of learning and adapting. For now, though, all they could do was wait. Minutes passed, each one feeling longer than the last. Then, without warning, the Phantom ship began moving again. It didn't approach the SS horizon this time. Instead, it turned slowly, its dark form shimmering faintly as it drifted away from them. "It's leaving," Laura whispered, her voice tinged with disbelief. But before anyone could relax, a message appeared on the main screen, not in words, but in images. A planet burning. Beings fading into nothingness. And then, a single phrase projected directly into their minds. "You are young. Learn." The Phantom ship vanished moments later, disappearing into the depths of the nebula, as if it had never been there. The bridge fell silent, the weight of what had just happened settling over the crew. Carter broke the silence first. "Lieutenant, send a message to Admiral Graves and Commander Dawson. Tell them the threat has passed, for now." Laura nodded and quickly relayed the update. Across the fleet, relief washed over the surviving crews. The Vanguard limped back toward safer territory, its engines sputtering but holding steady. For the first time in hours, the tension eased. Back on the SS horizon, Rachel sat quietly, staring at her hands. Carter approached her, his expression thoughtful. "You saw more than the rest of us," he said gently. "What does it mean? What happens next?" Rachel hesitated before answering. "I think it means we've been given a chance. That ship, those beings, they weren't here to destroy us. They were here to warn us, to test us. If we don't learn from this, if we keep making the same mistakes, we'll end up like them. Gone." Carter frowned, absorbing her words. Humanity had always been driven by ambition, pushing boundaries and exploring new frontiers. But perhaps, he realized, they had been too focused on conquest and not enough on understanding. Doyle joined them, his face lined with exhaustion. "So what now, sir? Do we just go home and pretend this never happened?" "No," Carter replied firmly. "We report back, share what we've learned, and we start asking questions about the nebula, about ancient civilizations, about everything. This isn't the end. It's just the beginning." As the SS horizon turned to leave the nebula, the swirling colors outside the windows seemed brighter, almost alive. Carter gazed at the view, his mind racing with possibilities. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: humanity's place in the universe was far more fragile and far more complex than anyone had ever imagined. Weeks had passed since the encounter with the Phantom ship, but its memory lingered like a shadow over the SS Horizon's crew. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his quarters, staring at a blank screen. Reports from the fleet and command headquarters filled his inbox, each one demanding answers about what had happened in the nebula. Yet no report could fully capture the strangeness of that day, or the weight of the message left behind. "You are young. Learn." Rachel Myers sat in a lounge, her mind still replaying fragments of the visions she had seen. The burning planet, the towering structures, the beings made of light. All of it felt more real than her own memories now. She had thrown herself into studying the data collected during their encounter, searching for clues about the Phantom ship and its creators. But the deeper she dug, the more questions she found. On the bridge, Chief Engineer Matthew Doyle worked tirelessly to repair the damage caused by the reactor modifications. The SS Horizon was limping home, its systems strained from the ordeal. Yet even as he focused on the repairs, Doyle couldn't shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of something far greater. "This isn't over," he muttered to himself, tightening a bolt. Not by a long shot. Admiral Henry Graves called another meeting with Carter and his senior officers. The transmission crackled to life, showing Graves' stern face on the screen. "Captain Carter, we need to know everything. What was that thing? Where did it come from? And why did it let you live?" Carter hesitated before answering. "Sir, I don't have all the answers, but based on what we've gathered, that ship wasn't an enemy. At least not in the way we thought. It was a remnant of an ancient civilization, one that destroyed itself because it grew too powerful, too fast. It came to test us, to see if we're repeating their mistakes." Graves frowned, clearly unsatisfied. "And what happens if we fail this test next time?" "That's the question," Carter admitted. "But for now, we've been given a chance. A warning, maybe even a second chance." After the meeting ended, Carter walked the corridors of the SS Horizon, listening to the hum of the engines and the quiet conversations of his crew. They were all changed by what had happened, each carrying their own doubts and fears. Some wanted to forget the whole thing, while others, like Rachel, became obsessed with understanding it. One evening, Carter joined Rachel in the observation deck. She stood by the window, gazing out at the stars streaking past. "Do you think we'll ever see it again?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Carter replied honestly. "But if we do, we'll need to be ready. Not just with weapons or technology, but with knowledge, with wisdom." Rachel nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about what it showed me. About the beings who built that ship. They weren't evil, they were proud. Too proud to listen to warnings until it was too late. That's what scares me most. We're heading down the same path." Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then it's up to us to change course, to learn from their mistakes instead of repeating them." As the SS Horizon approached human-controlled space, Carter received new orders. He was to lead an expedition into uncharted territory, tasked with uncovering more about the Phantom ship and its creators. It was a daunting mission, but one he accepted without hesitation. Humanity had been given a rare opportunity to explore the stars not just as conquerors, but as students. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with unknowns and challenges. But as the SS Horizon prepared to set course once more, Carter felt a flicker of hope. They had faced the impossible and survived. Whatever lay beyond the horizon, they would face it together, and perhaps, in doing so, prove that humanity was worthy of a place among the stars.